is a virtual meeting that is also being broadcast simultaneously on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Steve Tuckwell, and I am the chairman of this evening's meeting. Now, we're in virtual format, and I think all members and officers are well versed on the online housekeeping, so it's covering off the points around mobile phones being on silent, headsets to be used correctly and avoiding any noise close to your mouths. Keep the microphones muted, and also as chairman I will call people to speak and only one person speaking at a time. So that's the online housekeeping. In terms of virtual format, I do have to do an attendance roll call. So I will be calling your names out, and if you could just indicate that you are in attendance. So we'll start with the Vice Chairman, Councillor Chapman.
Present, Chairman, thank you.
Good evening, Councillor Ahmed Walana.
I'm present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chubadar.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you and good evening. Councillor Duncan.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Borough.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
Thank you. And Councillor Dillon.
Present, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Liz, that's a full house of members this evening, yeah?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. We have to do the same attendance roll call for those officers that are supporting this evening's meeting. So, again, I'll call you out, and if you could just confirm if you are here. Starting with our planning officer this evening, Meg Harani.
Present, Chairman.
Good evening. Head of planning, James Roger.
I'm present, Chairman.
Thank you. Liz, our democratic services officer.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. And our legal advisor this evening, Glenn Egan.
Present, Chairman.
Good evening. Okay, so that's all officers present. Liz, yeah?
Yep, that's confirmed.
Thank you. Okay, in terms of technical meeting control, if any councillor leaves the virtual meeting partway through a lost connection, etc., then I will continue the meeting unless we are not quorum, which is 3 councillors. Importantly, any councillor who does leave the meeting for a period of time will not be able to vote on the item that they were not present for. Okay, that's the housekeeping dealt with, so we can now move into the main body of the agenda. So we'll start off with agenda item number 1 this evening, which is apologies for absence. Liz?
Yes, apologies have been received from Councillor Roy Chamdal, and we have Councillor Eddie Lavery substituting for him.
Good, and many thanks to Councillor Lavery for stepping in this evening. You're very welcome. Agenda item number 2 this evening is declarations of interest in matters before this evening's meeting. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I want to declare the pecuniary interest in item number 13. I've had discussions about it with some of the adjacent residents, so I'll be withdrawing from the meeting when that item is discussed.
Okay, so you'll just be disconnecting and going on to mute, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other declarations of interest?
Item number 6, Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is that pecuniary or non-pecuniary?
Pecuniary.
Okay. Do we need a reason for that, Liz, for the record?
Yes, we do, please, for the minutes. Thanks very much.
I live opposite the proposed monopole.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Petitioners, etc.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Right, we can move on to agenda item, unless there's any other declarations. I'm not seeing anybody indicating. So we can move on to agenda item 3, which is to receive and agree the minutes of the last meeting, which I think was the 5th of August. So can we take those as a true record?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay.
Could I just raise a point? On page 4, the telecommunications streetwork mast Lombardy Retail Park. It wasn't just the proximity and amenity of the nearby residential units, but it was also of the street scene, Chairman, because, and I think it's an important point, simply because they're very unsightly. It places it in the middle of the Uxbridge Road, a dual carriageway. So as a principle for development, and also there had been recent town centre improvements and art work, which James Roger pointed out to us. So it is street amenity as well as residential amenity, please.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I do recall that point being made at the last meeting. So can we add those points, Liz?
Yeah, so if we can take those minutes as agreed, subject to those changes, and we'll make sure that those are amended.
Thank you. Yes, agree.
I can just add, Chairman, the reason for refusal did include street scene and visual amenity grounds as well when the petition was sent out.
Okay.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, good. I'm not seeing any other indications, so I can take it those minutes are agreed subject to that amendment.
Yes.
Okay. Item number 4 this evening is matters notified in advance or urgent. There is one item that I have taken on as an urgent item, and is an item that will be debated in part 2 of this evening's meeting. So I think you've had the papers for that, and we'll be dealing with that in part 2. Agenda item number 5 this evening is to confirm that there is 2 parts of this evening's meeting. We have part 1, which is items to be debated in public, and we have part 2, which there are 3 items which will be debated in private. At that point, we'll cease the YouTube feed and we will debate those 3 items in private. Okay, before we go on to the main agenda this evening, I'm just going to pass it over to James to give us an update on agenda item 7.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've got a short statement to read out to committee concerning item 7, the application to fell the Indian bean tree at 3 Cedars Court. I've received correspondence today querying the council tree officer's opinion that this tree is not dangerous. Having considered the correspondence further, I consider that whereas I can verify it is a tree of high amenity value, I would not be able to comment further on the safety issues raised. As such, I consider the most appropriate action is that I withdraw the application from tonight's agenda and that is brought back to the next meeting. I will ensure that the report, when it returns to committee, addresses in more detail the safety concerns being raised, and that there is an experienced tree officer in attendance who is able to directly answer questions from councillors concerning the safety issues raised. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, James. That confirms that agenda item 7 is withdrawn, and obviously James's point there will be considered in the notes, and we will welcome that application at the next meeting. Okay, right, that brings us into the main body of the meeting this evening. As I said, we've got 14 items in part 1 this evening, 1 being a petition, and we've got 3 items in part 2. So we have got a lengthy agenda. We are going to have good use of our time this evening, so I will be facilitating so that we can make best use of our time this evening, and if we can try and avoid any duplication, then we will get through each application and give some really good quality debate to each. But we have got a lengthy agenda to get through. So on that note, I think we will start with agenda item number 6, which is the land opposite 237 Station Road in Hayes, and I'll pass over to Meg to present the presentation. Councillor Dillon.
So Councillor Dillon has just left the meeting as he's declared an interest in this one.
That's correct.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application on land opposite 237 Station Road, Hayes. The application is for a monopole 18 metres high with associated equipment, 3 equipment cabinets, and then ancillary works to go with that. Members will note that there's a large number of monopole applications this evening, and there is a general issue in relation to a large number of them, and that is the visual impact that they have, particularly in terms of the height and the size of the monopole and the number and size of the equipment cabinets. I will present each item, but hopefully I won't need to repeat the visual issues too often, and I will go through the plans. So this particular application, if I can go to the plans themselves. So that's the sighting of the monopole and equipment.
I can't see the. Are they coming up now, Meg?
Sorry.
Yeah, we got them now.
The sighting is there. It is in a mixed use area. So you've got commercial uses to the left-hand side as you look at the screen, commercial industrial uses, and then to the right-hand side is a residential area. And so you can see from that the yellow area is the industrial area. And that's the site plan and the proposed site plan. One thing that these masts have is that they have a very large base attached or added to them upon which they sit, and the base is almost the size of the other equipment cabinet. So it is a bulky base as well as the height and size of the mast itself. That's before or the existing elevation and then the proposed. So the mast is well above the tree line. It is above the buildings that are situated around it, and it is situated opposite residential properties. So we are saying that it does have a visual impact. There is a second reason that we have, which is that we feel they haven't explored the possibility of siting the mast within the industrial area itself. They've looked at the roads which border the industrial area, but they haven't actually looked at the roads within the industrial area to see if the mast could be sited within that area, which would be less obtrusive and probably a better position for it. So for two reasons, we are recommending refusal: the visual impact of the mast and the cabinets, and also the fact that they haven't explored all the possibilities of siting the mast in another position. I would draw members' attention to the addendum sheet. We have received comments from NATS. They don't object to it, subject to an informative if members wish to approve the application. So it's recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Meg. I can see James Roger indicating there. So James, do you want to come in?
It was just a very quick comment. We have now had our first appeal decision concerning a 5G mast. It was dismissed, and the inspector considered both street scene impacts and the benefits of the expansion of the 5G telecom network, and the inspector decided that in that particular case, the adverse impacts on the street scene outweighed the benefits of expansion of 5G. Now, clearly that was a different site, but the point I wanted to say to committee is that this first appeal decision concerning a 5G mast does not contain anything in it that makes me think we need to deviate from the reports as written, or there isn't anything in the appeal decision that makes me think I need to alter any of the text in any of tonight's committee reports, nor is there anything that makes me think that the approach the committee has taken on various telecom applications is not correct in terms of how the committee has balanced the various material planning considerations. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. No, thank you, James. Useful update there. So, Liz, this is a petition item. Have we got anything from petitioners, applicant, or ward councillors?
No, Chairman, we haven't received anything at all from any of the parties on this one.
Okay, right. So, who wants to start the debate on this one then? Agenda item 6. Councillor, I think Councillor Lavery just picked Councillor Duncan there. So, Councillor Lavery.
Okay, I think we've got a perfectly good officer report in front of us. This is a very big mast. It is bordering, it's on the edge of an industrial area, but there's residential properties opposite. And it does come with a very large number of cabinets. So for those reasons, I would have no hesitation in supporting the officer report and would propose officer recommendations as per the report.
No, thank you, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Duncan?
Thank you. Yes, I echo what Councillor Lavery has said, but also the report does say that 2 ward councillors did submit objections. That's in the report, and the fact that it is there's a petition as well means that there's quite a bit of concern by residents, which I think most of us are finding within our wards when these applications appear. So I'm very happy to second the officer's recommendation for refusal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Brightman, I'm sure you've indicated there.
I did, Chairman. I was merely going to second Councillor Lavery's proposal.
Okay. You slightly pitched to it by Councillor Duncan, but thanks anyway. Right, I'm not seeing any other councillors indicate, so I think that would probably go to a vote now. So we'll start with Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Very happy to go with officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed Walana.
I would like to support the officer's recommendations to refuse the application.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman.
Go with officer's recommendations, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery, you moved, so I take it you're for. Councillor Chubadar.
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, you seconded, so Councillor Dillon's not here. Councillor Bira.
Thank you, Chairman. I go with officer's recommendation.
So I make that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 unanimous to go with officer's recommendation. Can you confirm that, Liz?
Yes, I can. That's confirmed.
Okay, so I can confirm agenda item number 6 is refused. Okay. So somebody make a call to Councillor Dillon and we'll just pause while he rejoins.
Yes, I'll do it. Thank you, Chairman. I'll do that.
He's joined.
Councillor Dillon has returned.
Thank you.
Okay, just checking that we're all present and correct. So welcome back, Councillor Dillon. Right, we can move on through the agenda now. We know that agenda item 7 has been withdrawn. So we will now move swiftly on to agenda item 8, which is the land at Clayton Road junction with Trevor Road in Hayes. So over to you, Meg.
Thank you, Chairman. Another application for a mast and associated equipment. This is a 20-metre mast to be situated close to the junction of Clayton Road with Trevor Road. Again, if I go directly to the presentation. So that's the siting of it. The surrounding area is in the main industrial. There is residential development going on Blythe Road in this area here. So that shows the surrounding area, all yellow industrial business area. The darker colour, the brown, is listed buildings, and they are being converted and are being put to residential use. And again, so the backdrop, if I can, so the site plan and the existing plan and the proposed and the elevation. So there is a reduced number of cabinets in this particular case. So you have 3 cabinets plus the base. And the backdrop is a fairly large industrial or warehouse building. If we can go to the photo, which is this particular building here. So in this particular case, we're happy to recommend approval given the backdrop to it and the fact that it is well screened from the residential properties by the landscaping that's associated with the residential property. So if I can go back to the aerial shot, you'll see that it is screened from the residential properties by the landscaping along this frontage. So in visual terms, we are not as concerned as the previous application about the impact on the residential or the visual impact on the residential properties due to the tree screening, and also there is some distance between the two, over 35 metres. So we're in this particular case going with a recommendation for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Meg. We have item 8 recommended for approval. Who wants to start off the debate this evening? Anybody wants to indicate? Councillor Lavery.
I thought I'd be slightly slower, but yes, slightly different application. This one's still a very large telecom mast, but in an industrial area with a backdrop of large buildings, which I think does, I would agree with the officer's opinion that it does soften the impact and is more in keeping with its surroundings. And on that basis, I would be happy to propose officer recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Chapman, you indicated?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm more than happy to second this. As has been said, it's in an industrial location. It's much more suitable. There's not really the domestic housing issue involved. So on that basis, I'm happy with it.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Chapman. And Councillor Dillon.
Nothing further to add. I was going to second it. Same comments. So.
Okay. No, good. Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other councillors or members indicate, so we'll go straight to the vote. Councillor Chapman, you seconded, so we'll go to Councillor Ahmed Malana.
Mr. Chairman, I'm for the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman?
For the officer recommendations, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery moved, so Councillor Tubadar?
For approval, Mr. Chairman.
For officer's recommendation? Yeah.
Yes, for officer's recommendations.
Councillor Duncan?
For.
Councillor Dillon?
For, Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Bira?
I'll go with the officer's recommendation 4, please.
Thank you. I make that unanimous. 8 to go with officer's recommendation for approval. Liz, is that correct?
That is correct, Chairman, yes.
Okay, I can confirm agenda item number 8 is approved. Thank you, everybody. Okay, let's now move on to agenda item 9, which is land Judge Heath Lane, Hayes. So, Meg, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is another application for telecoms mast, 18 metres high, with 3 cabinets associated with it. Unlike the last one, this is situated in a mostly residential area. It does have a backdrop to the boxing club, Hayes Boxing Club, which members will know. But that building is not, in terms of its height, a very high building. It is 2 stories in the main, and so this would be at least 10 metres or so above the height of that building. And given its situation in a residential area, we are recommending refusal on this. If I can again go to the plans. So that's the siting of it. You've got the boxing club here. The rest of the properties all around are residential, including the new development to the rear of it. And this is the existing site plan and the proposed existing elevation. You'll note the height of the building, and that line, the yellow line there, is the extent of the height of the boxing club So you'll see that at least half of the mast is above that. And the boxing club is the biggest building in the area. So anything above that or is lower or around that. So these are the surrounding properties, and that's the boxing club and the sighting of the mast. So it is, although it is a large building in terms of its footprint, it's not a particularly high building. In fact, you'll see that the residential properties behind it are slightly higher. So it will be particularly noticeable, and it is situated right opposite the junction, which makes it much more prominent as well. So for those reasons, we are recommending refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Meg. Okay, agenda item 9 recommended for refusal. Councillor Chapman, you had your hand up there.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as the report says, it's an obstructive, potential obstructive structure, and will add to the visual clutter. I mean, on that basis, I've got no hesitation in recommending officer's recommendation.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Duncan and Councillor Dillon. So, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Yes, I think this is a classic case of where we think these residential sites are totally inappropriate. And I do wish that the operators would discuss this in more detail with our officers before submitting these applications, because certainly in my area, and I'm sure in others, residents are very opposed to them being in their area for amenity reasons. So I think the more we have these, it would probably be better if the operators could discuss more appropriate locations. Anyway, I'm very happy with the officer's report, and I would like to second the recommendation of refusal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Dillon, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. I hate to sound repetitive, but I had exactly the same things to say, and I was going to second it. So there you go.
All right. Okay. Okay. We are moved. We are seconded. I'm not seeing any other members indicate, so we'll go straight to the vote.
Before you do, Chairman, I'll just point out the addendum item sheet. We do have an addendum on this. We have received comments from Heathrow Airport Safeguarding, and they have no objections to the scheme, subject to an informative. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. No, thank you. Right, we are moved. We are seconded. Councillor Chapman, you moved, so we'll go to Councillor Ahmed Walana.
Mr. Chairman, I'm for the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman.
I'll go with officer's recommendations, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Support officer recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar.
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, you seconded. So Councillor Dillon.
For Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Birra.
I go with the officer's recommendation, Chairman, for refusal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, Liz, I make that unanimous 8 for refusal of agenda item 9.
That's correct, Chairman.
Okay, I can confirm agenda item 9 is refused. Right, let's move on now to agenda item number 10, which is the land opposite 41 Morgan's Lane. Meg, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yet another mast. This is an application for a 15-metre mast situated opposite 41 Morgan's Lane. I'm not sure that they could have chosen a more open position if they tried. So if I go directly to the presentation, members will see how open it is. It's situated in front of an open space, and it is very obtrusive. So if I just go directly to the presentation. So that's the sighting of it. You've got open space all around it, plus the junction. So, and then there's residential properties all around. So it is very open. The all of the equipment plus the mast will be very visible. It is lower than the other masts in that it is 15 metres, but in this position we consider it to be obtrusive. So that's the existing and proposed site plan, and then the mast itself. And then members will see the position. It's going to be visible from whichever direction you approach, I think. And that's the position of it, and then wider views of its position, and then the surroundings. So that's opposite, and then just looking around the green itself. So it is an attractive area, but we don't feel it's the right position for the mast. And so on visual impact grounds, we are recommending refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
No, thank you. Right, agenda item 10, recommended for refusal. I can see Councillor Dillon indicating. So, Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought I'd get in there quick this time. If you just follow the meeting, this one's an absolutely ridiculous one. I would think the report says it all, and I'd move officer's recommendation for refusal.
No, thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Borough, you indicated.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think it's a very comprehensive report, and I go with I second that for refusal.
Okay, no, thank you. Right, I've got Councillor Chapman and Councillor Ahmed-Bolana indicated. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to second it, but the one thing I was going to ask before I seconded it, is the proposal to put it on the pavement, which I would suggest is too narrow anyway, or is the actual proposal to put it on the green space? Because I just on the basis that they're proposing to put it physically on the green space, not adjacent to it, but actually on the green space, I would say is another reason for rejecting it.
Meg, you able to cover that one off?
Yeah, so the proposal is, I'm just looking at the plans, and it is to be on the edge of the footpath. So it is on the green space, but right on the edge of the footpath.
Okay. Councillor Ahmed-Bolana, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, briefly, this company, I can see all the applications. They don't have any consideration for the local community at all. I mean, professionally, even I don't think that they haven't discussed anything with the officers. As we can see, all the very comprehensive reports on them. They don't care for the impact on the environment or visual amenity, or the size and the design of the installation. It's just ridiculous.
Okay, no, thank you for your comments there. James Roger, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that part of the reason I wanted to mention the fact that we've had our first appeal decision is that, yes, I agree with the comments said by a number of councillors thus far this evening, that some of these proposals, it's difficult to see what the reason for it is behind, what the rationale is behind the locations proposed for these masts. Your officers are looking at a number of them, and we cannot understand why they can't come up with a better location. But what I think, what's partly behind that is I think a number of the operators have been hoping that these proposals will get allowed at appeal. And what I think we hope as officers is the fact that the very first appeal decision we've received has gone in the council's favour, that it has been dismissed, and the inspector has said that the inspector, in effect, in this particular case in Eastcote, couldn't see the rationale behind the proposal and considered it was unacceptable and conflicted with council development plan policies, and as such should be refused because of the conflict with development plan policies. Hopefully that appeal decision, as well as decisions this committee is making, will hopefully change the position of these operators, and hopefully that there will in the future be more dialogue with council officers because councillors are right. There isn't really any real dialogue occurring between these operators and council officers. We have a pre-application advice service, and we aren't receiving requests to utilise that service. Thank you, Chairman.
No, thank you, James. Councillor Duncan, you indicated.
I did. Thank you, Chair. It's just to go back to the point that Councillor Chapman raised and which Meg answered. If we look at the plans in our plan book on page 222, it definitely appears to be on the other side of the back edge of pavement. And this is what the applicants have applied for. So either they've submitted a wrong plan, or it is actually just on the other side of the pavement and actually in the open space itself. So based on the plan that they have submitted, which is on page 222 in our plan book, maybe that is an additional reason for refusal, as Councillor Chapman proposed, because certainly we do not want these to be located on any of our open spaces. So I know Meg did say that the plan showed that it was at the back edge of pavement, but if we look in our own books and plans we've received, the applicant appears to have put it on the other side of the line and actually in the open space. So sorry to raise it again, but I do think it is an important point, and you know, something that I would like clarity on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Meg, can you maybe pick up those points?
Yeah, sorry, to clarify, I think I might have confused members. What I did say, it is situated right on the edge of the footpath, but it is within the green space. So it's not at all on the footpath. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. James, do you want to come in and think about...
I think the point basically being made is, can we expand the refusal reason? I think the answer to that is yes. I think we can reference more clearly in the refusal reason the harm to this area of open space. So if I'm understanding correctly, if that's the point being made, I think we could expand this refusal reason, and if members are happy to delegate authority to me, I'd more than happily strengthen the refusal reason.
Okay, Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I'm happy to do that if I understand that it was really Councillor Chapman making that point, and I support him completely on that, and I welcome James Rogers' advice on this to expand it. I think we should make it very clear that we do not want these located on our open space in Hillingdon. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm more than happy to delegate it to officers to put together the correct form of wording to indicate that we will not accept anything on a green space. Thank you.
Okay, no, good quality debate there, everybody. So, James?
Just the point I'd be making, the refusal reason, is that this is a quite small area of open space, and the mast would completely dominate the entire setting of the open space. So it would be expanding in words to that effect, Chairman.
Okay, and I think yeah, so it's a good quality debate there, and we are moved, we are seconded, but we are slightly different in terms of we're going to refuse, but obviously delegate to you to expand the refusal reasons to deal with what we've just debated. So on that note, Councillor Chapman.
Go with officer's recommendation plus the delegated authority, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed Walana.
I'm for, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman.
Go with officer's recommendations, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
I support officer's recommendations as varied.
Yeah. Councillor Tubadar.
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
And Councillor Duncan.
Yes, for refusal with the expansion of the reason for refusal.
I will ask Councillor Dillon, because you moved before we debated the expansion, so I take it you're still...
I'm indeed. Chairman, yes.
Okay, and Councillor Bira.
Yes, I said.
Okay, so that's unanimous 8 for refusal with delegated authority to expand the reasons for refusal. Liz, can you confirm that's correct?
Yes, I can. That's confirmed.
Okay, so I can confirm that agenda item number 10 is refused. Right, let's move on to agenda item 11, which is Balmoral Drive, Hayes. Meg, over to you, but are you going to cover off while there was a slight confusion in the plan pack for this that went out to members?
Yeah, so if I can just bring to members' attention the fact that there are a number of plans which have nothing to do with this application. So they have been put in there in error, and these plans are on pages 231, 234, 237, 238 and 241. If members ignore those plans, they are not anything to do with this application, and unfortunately they have been put in error. The correct plans are in the plan pack as well, so members are making a decision with the full information available to them. So if I can go to the application itself, this is another application for a phone mast 18 metres high with the associated cabinets situated at the junction of Balmoral Drive with Lansbury Drive. So again, if I can go to the presentation, yeah, so again, the surrounding areas, it is, there are commercial units joining it, if you like, but again, they're fairly low, similar in height to the others, buildings around it, which are all residential. It is almost a fully residential area, and the mast will dominate well above the roof lines of the adjoining properties, and will be very visible to residential properties opposite and around it. So for that reason, we are recommending refusal. That's the height of the mast, and members may just be able to make out the height of the commercial building that's there. It is 2 stories with a gable end, so that's the height. So again, we are talking of being at least half above the surrounding height of buildings. And if I can go to the photograph, so it's situated in that position again, very prominent position, virtually at the junction or the crossroads, so visible from a number of approaches, and that's the site of it. And the surrounding areas, again, as you can see, not very high. So for that reason, we are recommending refusal on visual amenity grounds. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, no, thank you very much for that, Meg. Councillor Brightman, he was indicating.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to go with officers' recommendations on this one. It's a monstrosity and a total blight on the landscape there.
Okay, no, thank you, Councillor Brightman. Councillor Lavery.
Yeah, I too would support officer recommendation. Entirely inappropriate place for it, surrounded by 2-storey housing. So I would second officer recommendations.
No, thank you, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Duncan, you indicated.
Thank you. I think also that from the photographs that we've just seen, the pavement is not particularly wide there. And so if you're going to have this, and if it is on a large base, as Meg advised us earlier, and there are also 3 cabinets as well, I mean, is that going to affect the use of the pavement there? You know, if somebody is pushing a pram or pushchair or something like this to go to one of the shops. I wondered if that was, it's not just the visual clutter and street amenity, but also the use of the pavement there, because it didn't look very wide. And if we're having all this stuff put on, how much is that going to take up of that pavement?
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Meg, this is quite often raised in previous applications where access on pavements and footpaths has been questioned. So is there anything to address Councillor Duncan's point there?
Usually on applications of this nature, we do consult with our highways colleagues, and they do give us comments. Unfortunately, this is one of the cases where we haven't had comments. One of the reasons why you have so many mast applications before you is that we need to deal with them before a certain amount of time expires. Otherwise, they get permission automatically. So this application is not that old, and we haven't had all of our consultation responses back. So we could discuss this with our highways colleagues, and if they feel that there is a highways reason to be added, then we can add it if you grant authority to the head of planning. We can, as I say, at the moment we have no reply from our highways colleague regarding the width of pavement that would be required. Thank you.
I know Councillor Duncan, you might want to come back, but James is also indicating that might just help Meg's point there. So I will come back to you, Councillor Duncan, but James?
Sorry, my immediate observation looking at page 233 is that the plan is so unclear that the highway engineers, I don't think he'd be able to comment whether the mast is causing a problem in terms of the pavement width. So I actually think a better option might be to add an informative, basically criticising the quality of the plan. It's a different option. You could perhaps, in addition to that, delegate to me to discuss further with the highway engineer, but I've got a feeling the highway engineer is going to struggle commenting further because of how poor the plan on page 233 is. Because I don't think the applicant's site layout plan is clear enough to actually answer the question. But as I say, we could, because we always have these time constraints, we could add an informative basically criticising the plans, and that the benefit of that is the inspector will see our decision notice, and the inspector will be aware through the informative that the council has concerns regarding plan quality.
Okay. Councillor Duncan, did you want to come back on any of those points?
I did, thank you, Chair. On the location plan, which is the applicant's own plan, on page 230 in our plan book, it clearly shows the siting as shown by them, not on the back edge of pavement, but on the front edge of the pavement where it meets the carriageway. And from the photographs that we were shown, I believe there were barriers. There were sort of like metal barriers there to, for safety reasons, to direct people to cross at the lights, possibly, or things like that. So I do think that it's clearly shown as the front edge of pavement, and that would then have some effect on, if we know the dimensions of the plans, that would then have some effect on the pavement width. So whilst I accept Mr. Rogers' comments about an informative is not enforceable. It's simply an informative. You're simply saying something to the applicant. I do think that they have shown enough that some kind of assessment could be discussed with our highways officers, and possibly they might want to quickly visit the site look at how these could be located on that particular piece of pavement, and if they felt that it did compromise that. I mean, at the moment, if there was someone coming along in a wheelchair or with a pram or buggy or pushchair, something like that, the pavement is for them. And so if this is going to compromise that, this proposal is going to compromise the movement of those pedestrians, then I think that would be an additional reason rather than an informative for refusal. And it could be incorporated into the reason for refusal already proposed. But I would like to ask if officers could look into that matter. And if they find evidence accordingly, then that would expand that reason for refusal. I do think it's a relevant and pertinent point, Chair. Thank you.
No, thank you, Councillor Duncan. James, can you, or Meg, can you come back on any of those points? Is it worth?
I'm going to slightly adjust my position. I've just looked at the dates, and we would have at least 10 days to post committee before we hit a time constraint because of the 56 days. So I think perhaps in hindsight the best option would be if you want to delegate to officers. I think there would be time for the highway engineer to go out on site and consider this further.
I would appreciate that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chapman.
I just wanted to make a comment that the barriers are there because there's a school nearby as well. And I'm not really sure whether the mots should be located near schools either.
Meg, can you come back on that?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. There was in the previous policies that we had an issue or a position that was in the policy that we wouldn't allow masts close to schools. It's not in the new policies, and I'm not sure that, and we have lost appeal decisions based on that previous policy. Purely on the basis of the siting close to a school. So I believe that is the reason why it's not in the current new policies, and that is the reason why we don't put it in the reasons for refusal any longer. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, no, thank you. Councillor Chapman, are you okay with that? Can you come back?
Yes, thank you for your response. I'm quite happy with what was mentioned.
So, some good scrutiny on this particular item. We are moved, we are seconded. I think we're now at the view that we're going to delegate authority to officers for further access assessment and highways assessment with a view to amending the conditions associated with refusing this particular item. So I think no other councillors are indicating, so we can go to a vote on that basis. So we'll start with Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, go with officer's recommendation plus the delegated authority.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed Walana.
For the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman, you moved, but there's been a debate since you moved, so I take it you're still for officer's recommendation?
Yes, Chairman, along with delegated authority.
Yeah. Same for Councillor Lavery. It's obviously had a little bit of a debate since you seconded.
Yeah, no, same position.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
For refusal and delegation, please. Thank you.
Councillor Dillon.
My position remains the same.
Thank you. And Councillor Bira.
I go with officer's recommendation, please.
Thank you. Right, that's unanimous. 8 officers' recommendation with delegated authority for a further assessment. Is that correct, Liz?
Yes, that's correct, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, so I can confirm agenda item 11 is refused. Okay, let's now move on to agenda item 12, which is the land at Holloway Lane, junction of Simpson Road and Holloway Lane in Harmansworth. Meg, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, another mast application. This is for a mast of 20 metres high at the junction of Holloway Lane and Simpson Road. It is slightly different to the ones that members have already considered, in that it is not within a residential area, but it is a very open area surrounded by greenbelt land. So it is very, very visible, and the nearest building to it is a listed building. So if I can go to the presentation. Yeah, so this is the location, and as you can see, very open. All around it is greenbelt land. This is the nearest building. It is quite a long way away. It is a listed building, so it doesn't form part of our reasons for refusal, but the only other buildings around it are the bus depot opposite. So there is very little in terms of buildings around it. There is some tree cover, but this mast does stick well above the tree line and will be very visible, and for that reason we are recommending refusal. So this is the sighting of it in there, and the proposed elevation. As you can see, the plans are slightly better in this case, and members can appreciate the impact that the mast will have in visual terms. So if I can just go to the photographs, you can see all around open, and that's just taking long views of it, and that's the position that it's going to be. So it will be visible, but it's a visual impact as opposed to a visual impact on residential properties in this particular case, but still recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Meg. Right, Councillor Chapman, you had your hand up first there.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's a remarkably open and high visible location. Totally unsuitable in my opinion. I've got no hesitation in recommending that we go with officers' recommendations.
No, thank you very much there, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Ahmed Bolana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's not acceptable in our open space area, and that's very visible. I'm happy to second.
No, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duncan, did I see you indicate there?
No, I'm just happy to go along with the proposer
Okay.
and seconder. Thank you.
Okay, right. I'm not seeing any other indications to comment. We are moved, we are seconded, so we can go straight to the vote on this one. Councillor Chapman moved, Councillor Ahmed Bolana seconded. So Councillor Brightman.
Go with officer's recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Support officer recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar.
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
For refusal, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon.
For refusal, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Bira.
For refusal, Chairman.
Okay, Liz, I make that unanimous 8 for refusal.
Yes, that's confirmed.
Okay, Councillor Chapman, you indicated?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Obviously, the next item's the one where I withdraw. Do you want me to physically log off, or do you just want me to mute everything?
I think it was you non-pecuniary, so I think you just mute your phone and disconnect your camera. Is that right, Liz?
No, that's fine. I'll watch but not comment, obviously.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. If it's a non-pecuniary interest, then you just need to mute yourself and not take part in the voting on this one.
Okay, thank you.
Chapman. All right, thank you.
So just to confirm, agenda item 12, Liz is refused, yeah?
Yep, that's confirmed. Thank you, Chairman.
Correct. Okay. Right, agenda item 13, which is 16, the Dingle, Hillingdon. Councillor Chapman has disconnected for this particular application. So, Meg, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sure members will be glad to get away from foam masts for a minute. This is an application for 16 The Dingle, which is a 2-storey residential property, semi-detached, and the application is for a first floor rear extension. Again, it's probably better I go directly to the plans. Members will see that the damage has almost been done to the property, and the addition of this extension is unlikely to have any further visual impact on the surrounding area, and it has limited impact on the adjoining occupiers. The extension does comply fully with our policies in terms of the 45 degrees and its design. So if I can go to the presentation. So 2-storey semi, it has had extensive works done to the property, and members will see that that's the existing and proposed floor plans. So the proposed extension is sited in the middle of the property here. Members will see that it complies with a 45-degree angle from the adjoining property. It's had a loft conversion, and it's also had a single-storey side and rear extension added to it already. So that's the single-storey side and rear, and the loft conversion, and the extension is proposed in this position here. So as I said before, the damage has almost been done by the permitted development works that have gone on to the property, and the addition of this extension is unlikely to have such a visual impact that it would be refusable. And in terms of the impact on the adjoining occupiers, it complies with the council's policies. So we're recommending approval on this one. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Meg. Right, Councillor Lavery, I think I saw you indicate there.
I did. This is, I think the best word to describe it is ugly. It's not good planning. It may tick some boxes, and I suspect that's what it does do. The PD, and assuming that is PD, loft extension makes it look like a flat roof property. This won't add to its visual attractiveness. But I'm struggling, unfortunately, on technical grounds to find a reason to refuse it, because that's exactly what I'd love to do with it.
Okay.
My comments there, unless anyone else can come up with something that we can refuse this one on.
Well, I've got a few people indicating here, so I think we'll go with Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with Councillor Lavery. I think it's a monstrosity. And I would like to ask officers whether we can refuse it on the grounds of its visual impact. Not obviously not on the street scene, but there is a visual impact. It looks architecturally disgusting. It's got no planning merits in terms of visual. And I think it's serious enough for us to be able to refuse it, just because it meets a 45-degree angle. We should look to refuse it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dillon. Meg, you want to come back on any of the points raised by Councillor Dillon there? I think you're still on mute, Meg.
Sorry. In terms of its visual impact, as I said before, I think the damage has already been done to the property, and it's a question of whether members consider that this will make it worse. I think that it's going to be difficult for us to argue that it has such an impact that we can refuse it. In terms of the impact on adjoining occupiers, it does comply with the 45-degree from both sides. So it again, we would be hard pushed to refuse the application on that basis. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Before we go to Councillor Duncan, Councillor Dillon, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, it's just a comment on whether it does make it worse, and I believe it does make it worse than what it already is. So there should be enough there to be able to refuse, in my opinion. But let's have a debate on it first.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree with previous speakers who've commented on the appearance of this. The design is bad, if one can call it a design. I think it is very much a tick box exercise, getting it to comply with Council's 45-degree angle. But there are proposals, there are policies, sorry, within our local plan and design guidance that do talk about development, adding and improving the amenity of an area. I think this has a very detrimental effect on the residential amenity of adjoining occupiers and other residents in the area when they're in their rear gardens. This establishes a design principle that instead of coming out one part of the building, you know, one of the main side walls of the property, so that it forms a kind of wing, if you like, little extension at 2 stories. This is plonked in the middle. It doesn't relate architecturally or in design terms to anything. And for that reason, yes, I do think that the very oversized roof PD has not enhanced the building, but I think this would just add to it. And I do think that we do have policies in our local plan. I don't know them off the top of my head, but I'm sure officers are very well versed in them, where if something is of such a poor design, we do not want to encourage this kind of thing. And believe me, if somebody does it on this building, it won't be long before other people are doing that elsewhere. And do we really want to be the borough with this kind of development going on? I don't think it's acceptable. I agree with my councillor colleagues on this, and I would ask the officers if they can look at the relevant designs relating to residential amenity in terms of house extensions to see how this can be refused. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Meg, James, do you want to pick up any of those points that's been raised so far?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Duncan is right in that it's juxtaposition, if you like, in relation to the roof works that have been carried out isn't very successful. And if members felt that that was the reason why they want to refuse it, then on design grounds, we can come up with wording which takes that into account. So in terms of the roof works that have been done, they're clearly not very, in terms of visual amenity, we wouldn't normally approve them. They're permitted development, and that's what they're allowed to do. And if members feel that any further extensions to this property will make it visually much worse for adjoining occupiers as well as the surrounding residential properties, then that is a reason for refusal that we can add, I think, or come up with, which takes into account our design policies, which will be DMHB 11 and DMHD 1.
Okay. Councillor Lavery, you indicated.
I did. It seems that others have carried on where I left off on this one, in that this is visually a very unacceptable development. So if we've got, and what the officers are saying, I think we can make a case that this is visually unacceptable. This isn't in this part of the borough, you know, this will be visible from surrounding houses, the houses when people are in their gardens, and also there will be houses that will be backing onto this. We're not in the parts of the borough that have got such huge gardens that you can't see anybody else's rear. So I would very much go with if we can refuse this on the grounds of visual amenity, because it clearly doesn't work. It ticks some technical boxes, but it clearly does not work as a design.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lavery. I've got Councillor Duncan and Councillor Dillon, but I can see James Roger is indicating, so he may well have a view before we get to the other two councillors.
I might be able to help members slightly. So the officer report is implying that it's to the rear and therefore not in the public eye, that it's not visible from the street scene. But I think that's actually incorrect. If I can refer councillors to the site plan on page 91, unless I'm misreading the site plan, and this may need Megji to comment further, there's a large gap between number 2, the dingle, and number 110, which would mean that actually the rear elevation isn't just visible from adjoining neighbours, it's actually visible from the wider street scene. So I think Meg maybe needs to see if he can rebut what I've just said. If not, it would strengthen the arguments that members are making in terms of the visual impact.
Okay, thank you, James. Let's go to Councillor Duncan, and then we'll follow up with Councillor Dillon afterwards. So, Councillor Duncan.
Well, based on the officer's advice that we've received so far, I would like to move that we do refuse this, and on the grounds of design and residential amenity, and that the detailed wording for that be agreed by officers and put back to us by email or to the chair and Labour lead, if that's acceptable.
So, sorry, Chairman. The development doesn't breach the 45-degree lines. I don't think we can argue that it will affect neighbours' light or be over dominant. But I think what members could argue is the subjective matter of visual amenity, and what Megji was confirming earlier is that our policies are flexible enough that if we think there's visual harm, we can refuse an application. So I think it would only be on visual amenity. My guidance to committee would be that you could refuse this, not on that it's affecting directly the amenity of adjoining neighbours.
Well, I was only suggesting residential amenity in its broadest terms. In other words, that people, whether they're driving past this and driving past the gap between 2 and 110, the dingle, and can look across and see this, because don't forget this is going to be at first floor level, so it will be visible, as well as other people in their gardens or backing onto this are looking at something which does not relate in good design terms and is therefore against the residential amenity that all the design policies are there to preserve and enhance. So I wasn't talking about the 45-degree angle and being deprived of light or anything like that, but just that you're in a residential area where all the residential properties to a certain extent conform to a certain design ethos, whereas this certainly does not. And because of that, it stands out and not in a good way. So it is about the visual amenity, but, from individuals as well as those people passing by on the street. So I'm sorry to belabor this point, but yes, I wasn't proposing that it breached the 45-degree angle and was against residential amenity on those grounds. So, but thank you for that, James. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. I've got Councillor Dillon on my list, and then Councillor Ahmed Walana afterwards. So, Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to bring into play, and it's a question really, if we were to fail at an appeal, would the because we haven't mentioned anything like conversion to flats, etc., should we be mentioning something like that now, or would that come back as a separate application at a later date if this were to be allowed at appeal?
Meg, can you pick Councillor Dillon's point up?
Yeah, I think if it was allowed at appeal, then at that point, if it came in with an application for conversion, then we would have to apply different policies, which would be our DMH4 conversion policy, which would need to measure the size of the or the overall size of the building before conversion can take place, and so it would need to be 120 square meters, which we do include the extensions within that. But even with that, it may not reach that point. So usually the original size of these properties is between 70 and 80 square meters. So it would need to have had an additional 50 or so square meters to reach that 120. So it'll be close, but it may not even reach that point. But we would need to consider it in the light of those policies rather than our extensions policies, which we're considering at the moment.
Okay. Councillor Dillon, do you want to come back?
Yes, and I'm assuming the same would apply to any application for a HMO at any other stage. Thank you.
Yeah, so again, if we have an application for HMO, then different policies would apply.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ahmed Walana, you indicated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The situation is very interesting, actually, first time. After James Rogers' comments, I'm quite comfortable now. Before that, I was kind of, in limbo. They might not have breached any planning policies or rules, but obviously I can see the mood of the committee that it's not acceptable visually. So just precisely, can I ask what would be the reasons for refusal? I mean, just straightforwardly. So number one, number two. So because it might go for appeal. So if we are, if we don't want to set a precedent, and of course, people will start doing the same thing. So you just need to know the robust reasons overturning the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't think we're in a position to get the specific wording bottomed out, but certainly, I don't know, James, you might be able to give Councillor Ahmed Walana a flavour as to what might that look like.
Well, I think a potential refusal reason would focus on the adverse visual impact of the proposals, but would also emphasise that the property's already had two large extensions, and that the cumulative impact of this third extension would result in an adverse visual impact. And I think we'd emphasise that that there are public viewpoints that the extension would be visible from, because the inspector, that might tip the kind of, when it goes to appeal, the fact that it's visible from a public viewpoint may slightly tip things in favour of an appeal being dismissed. So it would be a combination of all of those points, cross-referencing various development plan policies that seek to protect the visual amenity of the borough street scenes.
Okay.
Sorry,
Councillor Ahmed Walana.
Thank you.
Okay. I know you indicated Councillor Brightman, but I've got Glenn indicating as well, and I was going to ask Glenn to come in with a legal standpoint. So, Glenn.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just to say there, having listened to the debate and particularly what James has just said, I'm clear that all those grounds specified are clearly arguable on appeal. As you know, I can't guarantee we'd win, but I think that some of those grounds are quite strong there, particularly about the visual impact and on members of the public will have there, that the impact is visible from a wide distance as well, and that the cumulative impact of the proposed extension just takes things a bit too far. So I'm happy to argue those points on appeal, Chairman.
Okay, no, thank you for that, Glenn. That will give members a lot of comfort. Councillor Brightman.
Glenn's answered my question.
Oh,
thank you, Chairman.
Well preempted there, Glenn. Well preempted. Okay, we are moved for refusal of this item, and I take it that we are going to delegate authority to come up with refusal reasons, and then come back to myself as chair and Councillor Duncan as Labour lead to sign those off and approve on behalf of the committee. We are moved for refusal. Anybody want to add any other comments? Councillor Dillon?
I'm happy to second if anyone hasn't, and no other comments.
Okay, thank you. We are moved, we are seconded for refusal. We've delegated authority to come back to the chair and Labour lead. Not seen any other indicators, so I will go to the vote. So, Councillor Ahmed Walana.
For the refusal, Mr. Chairman, with the delegated authority.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman.
For refusal, Chairman, with delegated authority.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Refusal with the delegated authority as discussed.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar.
For refusal as discussed, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, I know you moved, but there's been some debate since you moved, so I just want to check that you're still okay with that.
Yes, happy with that, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Dillon, you seconded. So I make Councillor Birra.
For refusal, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We haven't got Councillor Chapman, but I make that unanimous 7 for refusal, with delegated authority to officers to come up with refusal reasons to come back to myself as chair and Councillor Duncan as Labour lead.
Yes, Chairman, that's correct.
Okay, so I can confirm agenda item 13 is refused. Councillor Chapman, you can rejoin us now. And we will now go to agenda item 14, which is Baylis Telecommunications Sites, Long Lane, Hillingdon. Meg, can you take us through this one, please?
Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, excuse me, please, for the interruption. Would you mind if I could have a couple of minutes for loo break? Just been drinking a lot of coffee, so if you don't mind.
Okay, well, I'm not going to say no. So I think on that basis, then I think if we were just, Liz, okay to pause for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, we'll leave these the recording and the stream running. If we can all just put our switch off our cameras just for a few moments, and then we'll reconvene as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you.
I'm back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for your kindness.
Not at all. Not at all. I think we're just waiting for Councillor Borough and Councillor Chapman. Is that right, Liz?
Yes, and Councillor Lavery has his camera switched off. If you could, if any councillors are present, if they can just switch their cameras back on, so we can
I can see Councillor Lavery, but he has his second.
Right. Okay.
He has
Apologies.
two.
Yes, apologies. Yeah. So it's just Councillor Borough and Councillor Chapman. That's correct.
I think we're just waiting for Councillor Borough, and then.
That's right.
We'll just give it a couple more moments, Liz. Councillor Borough, are you back? No. I'm going to give it another few moments, Liz, and then we will make a start if Councillor Borough's back or not. Conscious of time.
That's fine, because we'll still be court, so we can go ahead.
Yeah.
Councillor Borough, if you are there, would you mind just switching your camera on, please? Just to make double sure that there we go. And Councillor Chapman, you've switched your camera off. If you could just switch back on. Great. Okay. Thank you all. So, Chairman, I can confirm we are all back. Yes, so we can continue.
He's well refreshed and ready for the second part of part one.
And continue with the meeting now.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope everybody is well refreshed and ready for the second part of part one. So we'll now go on to agenda item 14, Baylis Communication Site at Long Lane, Hillingdon. Meg, can you take us through this one, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Back to telecommunications equipment, and this is an application for a 20-metre monopole and 6 equipment cabinets. The site is opposite 2325 Long Lane. It's at the Uxbridge Road end of Long Lane, and we are recommending refusal on a number of grounds. The first one is the visual impact. It is sited opposite residential properties and close to other residential properties. It's on a grass verge. There is possible impact on the trees. We have no information as to what impact there might be on the trees. There are trees close by on the grass verge. So that's a reason for refusal. And the third reason is that we've noted that there are telecommunications sites within fairly easy distance, 200, 300 metres away, and we have no information as to why these sites cannot be upgraded or added to. So for the third reason is that we feel they haven't explored all the possibilities of siting the equipment in a different position. So 3 reasons for refusal. If I can go to the presentation. So that's the site of it. This is leading into open space. You've got residential properties around. This is a commercial parade with residential above. And then residential properties surrounding. And then the existing site plan and the proposed site plan. We've got no indication on the plans as to the position of the existing trees and how the equipment may impact on the trees. It is a large number of cabinets. They do go some distance down the road, so we feel that they may well impact on the trees, or particularly their roots. So that's the aerial photograph just showing the position, and that's a long view. So the siting is in this position here, and as you can see, it is close to these trees, so we're recommending refusal on that basis. A slightly longer view, and yeah, so it is recommended for 3 reasons: visual impact, or possible impact on the trees, and the fact that we feel they haven't explored all the other possible sites which may be possible. So for those reasons, refusal is recommended. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Before I forget, there is an addendum on this. We have received an additional comment from a member of the public, and we've also received comments from MOD Safeguarding and Heathrow Safeguarding. They both don't object. The additional comment doesn't raise any further issues which are not covered in the main report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Meg. Okay, right, agenda item 14, 3 items, 3 recommended reasons for refusal. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, but there's just one matter that I would ask could be corrected. In the report, in the summary on the first page, page 93, it refers to the proposal is considered to be an obtrusive form of development which would add visual clutter to the street scene and the wide central reservation that runs down Station Road. That's incorrect, and it must be something that relates to another report. So I think if that could be taken out as information that we've received as not being relevant to the matter that we're considering, then I'm moving the officer's recommendation for refusal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Duncan. Good spot. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got no hesitation in seconding the proposal to reject it. One thing I would ask, I don't want to sound like Groundhog Days, but can we clarify, bearing in mind the pavement itself is very narrow there, is the proposal to put it in front of the pavement on the grass verge or behind the pavement? The area that we're talking about on Long Lane, the green space behind it is very much a little green space backing onto Charvel Lane West. So I think, again, it's worth mentioning because the pavement, the concrete area is very narrow. So it looks to me like they must be proposing to put it on the grass verge.
Yeah, I think Meg did mention something about the verge, but can you come back to Councillor Chapman there, Meg?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Councillor Chapman is correct. It is sited on the grass verge, just adjoining the tarmacked footpath area.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Chapman?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would. On that basis, can we add that as another reason? Because A, I don't want the green verge to go, but also it's going to be very physically dominant for cars driving up Long Lane, approaching what is a very, very busy, complicated junction.
Meg, is there something we could pick up?
I think Councillor Chapman might be suggesting there's a highway reason. I think we'd struggle because it is a fairly straight road. In visual terms, the impact on highways or driver distraction, the visual impact is clearly a reason for refusal, but highways reasons we may struggle given that visibility is pretty good in both directions there.
Councillor Chapman, did you want to come back on that?
No, that's fine, Chairman. I tried anyways.
Okay, right, thank you. I'm not seeing any other members indicate, so we are moved, we are seconded. So I think it's a good point to go to the vote. Councillor Chapman, you seconded, so Councillor Ahmed Walana.
For the officer's recommendations, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman.
Go with officers' recommendations, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Support officer recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar.
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, you moved. So Councillor Dillon.
For officer recommendation.
And Councillor Bira.
I'll go with the officer's recommendation for refusal, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Liz, I make that a unanimous 8 votes for refusal. Can you confirm?
I can confirm, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I can confirm agenda item 14 is refused. Okay, right, let's move on to agenda item 15, 36 Pole Hill Road. So, Meg, can you take us through this application, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is an application at 36 Pole Hill Road for an outbuilding. It is before you because there is, members will note from the history section, a enforcement history on this site. There was a previous outbuilding which was larger, or slightly larger, not particularly more, and that was being utilised as a separate residential unit, and so enforcement action was taken and that building was demolished. This application is for an outbuilding, and even despite its enforcement history, we feel that with the restrictive conditions that are set out in the report, we can recommend approval in this case. If I can go to the presentation. So that's the site, and members will note that there are outbuildings adjoining the site. So these are the plans, 7.2 by 5.4, 2.5 meters high, and this is the previous outbuilding and the siting of it, and that has been demolished, and we are recommending approval with a number of restrictive conditions, including the fact that they wouldn't be allowed to put in any partitions or subdivide the outbuilding into separate rooms, and obviously the use of the outbuilding. So with those conditions, we feel that we can recommend approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Meg. Okay, agenda item 15 is up for approval. It is quite heavily conditioned, as you will see from the report. So who wants to start the debate? Councillor Lavery.
Chairman, you're correct. It is heavily conditioned. Given the enforcement history on this site, not something that finds particular favour with me. But we do know that we have great difficulty at appeal when we refuse outbuildings, particularly those where the use is in connection with the main house, and clearly a gym can be considered, or games room can be considered to meet that criteria. There are sufficient conditions, I believe, to protect it from other uses and it becoming a separate residential unit. On that basis, I think we will have to go with officers' recommendations, because I don't think we will be able to sustain anything else, given it is large, but large these days doesn't appear to be a criteria the inspectorate recognise. The height is low, and the use is appropriate. So I think we are going to be stuck with this one. I will leave it at that. I won't propose at this stage in case anybody else has got anything else to come at it with.
Okay, no, thank you, Councillor Lavery. Any other members wishing to add to the debate on this one? Councillor Dillon.
Just to echo Councillor Lavery's comments, and I'll be happy to second if he's going to propose.
Well, I'll make it simple and propose it then, Chairman.
Okay.
Everybody else is, if everybody else is there with it.
I think Councillor Dillon was happy to second there as well. So any other members wishing to, no, not seeing any indication. So we are moved, we are seconded. So we will start with Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm happy to go along with the officer's recommendation on the basis that it will be a gym or a study or a games room. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the conditions make that perfectly clear. That's what we're aiming for. So, okay, Councillor Ahmed-Wallana.
I am for, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman.
Reluctantly go with officer's recommendations.
Okay. Councillor Lavery, you moved. Councillor Tubadart.
For approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon, you seconded. So Councillor Borough.
I go with the officer's recommendation, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Liz, I make that unanimous, 8 votes for officer's recommendation to approve.
That's correct, Chairman, yes.
Okay, I can confirm agenda item 15 is approved. So thank you very much, everybody. Let's now move on to agenda item 16, which is 64 Regent Avenue, Hillingdon. So Meg, can you take us through this application, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is an application at 64 Regent Avenue for conversion to 2 self-contained flats, 2 one-bed units. The proposal fully complies with our policies in terms of the size of the building, the size of the flats that are being proposed. They both have access to their own amenity space and they both have access to their own parking space. So it does comply and for that reason we are recommending approval. If I can just go through the plans. So that's the siting of it and the proposed layout. So a parking space each to the front and a parking space each to the back, or 2 to the front for one unit and 2 to the back for the other. And that just shows the rear and the property itself. I can just go back to the plan. You'll see that the upstairs unit has an access from a staircase to its own parking space situated to the rear, and the ground floor unit has a amenity space situated here. So, and both of the amenity spaces comply with the size requirements. So it fully complies and we are recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you again for that, Meg. Right, let's throw the debate out to members to debate this particular application. Any members want to start us off? Councillor Lavery.
I'll start. A question for officers. Normally on flatted developments, we would be expecting provision for cycles, and I don't see any. The gardens could easily do it, but I don't actually see any on the plans. Perhaps I know highways haven't commented, but it is normal, I think, for flatted applications.
Meg, can you come back on that?
Thank you, Chairman. We do normally require that they are provided, and I thought there was a condition covering that, but obviously not. So we can add that as an additional condition requiring details. The bin provision is indicated on the plans, but the cycle provision is not. So we can add that as a requirement to be submitted to us.
Okay, Councillor Lavery, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, the rest of the application complies, as Meg has indicated, with our requirements, both in terms of the size of the properties. There appears to be no external changes. The gardens are sufficient size and usable. And whilst I can understand people's reservations about conversions to flatted, I don't think we have enough on this one to do anything other than accept the officer recommendations with the additional condition regarding cycles.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Chapman, I know you indicated, but I'm going to go to James Roger, who's indicated there. And then come back to you.
I was just going to suggest a further condition to members. In similar cases, members have asked officers to condition that the parking is effectively allocated, so that in this case the front parking would be for the ground floor flat, because that's where the vehicles would be in front of the lounge window, and the condition would specify the rear parking is for the upstairs flat, and if the arrangement is done that way, then you don't inconvenience the occupiers of the ground floor flat. Thank you, Chairman.
No, thank you, James. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was actually going to ask about allocated parking, believe it or not. I'm very conscious that the 2 parking spaces to the rear, which are onto a gated alleyway, are going to be, shall we say, less attractive to people than the 2 at the front for convenience. So I was just going to say, can we have allocated parking? But James has preempted me.
Excellent. Good. Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Do we need to have a condition about noise insulation? Normally, when these houses are divided, we do have to beef up the noise insulation, because you're going to have bedrooms over living rooms, or, you know, there's a different dynamic in the house. When it was a house, people were downstairs in living areas and dining areas, then they all go up to bed. Now it's mixed, and I just wondered what happened to that. It used to be a standard condition, but it doesn't appear here. Is that needed?
Meg, can you pick up Councillor Duncan's point?
Yeah, we did used to put that condition on, but what we found was that it was covered by the building regulations, and what the details that they submitted to us were in fact details that they were submitting to the building regulations anyway. So we kind of stopped putting that condition on, because it was repeating something that they were already required to do.
Good. Okay, as long as that's covered, that's fine. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Lavery, you indicated.
Yeah, I find that slightly strange, because when we're looking at flatted developments, certainly in the world of major applications, regardless of size, we always impose noise conditions. Despite whether in building regs or not, we always impose noise conditions. So I'm a little confused by the advice.
Okay.
Perhaps James could help us.
James, maybe you can come back on that.
Whether that is to do with road noise or the external noise, and therefore it's the window situation, or whether it's insulation between units. So,
well, it is the point Councillor Duncan's making. It's about insulation between units, and in fact,
yeah,
the noise conditions appear to be getting stronger from the noise officers on the major applications. It's not so much road noise. No, it's very much the division of noise in the block, where you can get, you know, people above and below each other. Yeah. So, as I say, it was just a...
Yeah, no, I mean, it may be that our noise officers require standards which are above the building regulations, and if that's the case, then certainly we can add a condition requiring submission of noise insulation details between floors and between walls of the adjoining units as well. So that may well be the situation that they're considering on the majors, and if that is the case, then we should certainly add a condition requiring those details in this case.
I'm certainly getting a lot of nods from members on that particular point. So, James, anything you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have been putting noise conditions on flatted developments that have been going to the Majors Committee. So Councillor Lavery is completely correct. So, I mean, I think what I'd simply say, if you're happy to delegate to me, I think we can certainly add some form of noise condition. The only thing I'm unclear in my head at the moment is not whether we should have noise conditions, exactly how we'd word it, and whether it would be a slightly less technical version than some of the ones going to Majors Committee. But in terms of the kind of principle of could we add a noise condition, I'm quite happy to align with all the nods of councillors in terms of adding a condition on. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Councillor Duncan.
I think we should be consistent, Chairman. If we're going to do it on larger developments, at what point do we stop doing it on smaller ones? So let's just be consistent across the board, I would suggest. Thank you.
I have to agree with the consistency sentiment. So yeah. So we're not moved and we're not seconded yet. So any other councillors want to add a debate to the debate? Councillor Lavery.
Well, I was going to move and say I was going to move this to approve officer recommendations subject to additional conditions on allocated parking, provision of cycle space, and noise. And I would suggest the final wording to be delegated to the head of planning.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I'm happy to second that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Right. So we are moved and we are seconded. I'm not seeing anybody else indicate that they want to contribute to the debate, so we can go to the vote. So let's start off with Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, go with officer's recommendation.
Okay, Ahmed Walana. Councillor Ahmed Walana.
For the officer's recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman.
Go with officer's recommendation and the conditioning with James, please.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Lavery, you move. So Councillor Tubedale.
For approval as discussed, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan seconded. So Councillor Dillon.
Move with the officer's recommendation.
And Councillor Bira.
I go with officer's recommendation, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Liz, I confirm that that's 8 unanimous votes for officer's recommendation with 3 delegated conditions to go to, or 3 delegated rights to go to 3 potential conditions, which is for cycle provision, condition around parking, and noise insulation. Can you confirm that's
Yep,
where we are?
Confirm that. That is correct.
Okay, I can confirm then agenda item 16 is approved on that basis. Thank you very much, everybody. Good debate. Okay, let's go to agenda item 17, which is the land at Pump Lane in Hayes. Meg, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is another application for a monopole with the associated cabinets. This is a 20-metre high monopole. It is situated in a industrial stroke business area, and in a different position it might well be acceptable, but unfortunately they appear to have chosen the more attractive part of the industrial area, if you like. So we are recommending on visual grounds, but also there are 2 additional reasons for refusal. It is situated very close to a street tree, and the tree officer is considered that the proposed installation will have an impact on the tree, and we have an objection from the council's access officer on the fact that it will restrict the footpath and be particularly hazardous for disabled users and visually impaired. So for those 3 reasons we are recommending refusal. If I can just go to the presentation. So the site plan indicates that it is mostly in the industrial business area. There is residential, so it is towards the end of the business area. And the existing site plan and the proposed. And again, this is an approximate sighting of the tree, but it does appear to be sited virtually under the canopy of the tree. And the proposed elevation. So, as I said before, they appear to have chosen the more greener end of the business area, and therefore it'll be sited in this position here. It will impact this tree and it will reduce the size of the footpath to an unacceptable level. So for those three reasons, we are recommending refusal. And these are the just the longer shots. And so refusal recommended. Thank you, Chairman.
No, thank you, Meg. Okay, item 17 up for refusal. 3 refusal reasons. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, very straightforward and clear. Thank you, officers, for this report. I move officers' recommendation. It is unacceptable and prejudices the tree, survival of the tree.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Chapman, I think I saw you indicate there.
I did, Chairman. I was going to propose it myself. I'm more than happy to second it, though.
Okay, right. We are moved and seconded. I can't see anybody else indicating. So we'll go straight to the votes. Councillor Chapman, you seconded, so we'll go to Councillor Ahmed Walana.
For, Chairman.
Councillor Brightman.
For, Chairman.
Councillor Lavery.
For.
Okay, got that. Councillor Tubadar.
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan moved, so Councillor Dillon.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Birra.
For refusal, Chairman.
Thank you. I make that unanimous 8 votes for refusal of agenda item 17. Is that correct, Liz?
That's correct, Chairman. Yes, thank you.
Okay, I can confirm agenda item 17 is refused. Okay, moving swiftly on then to agenda item 18, which is Scottish Southern Energy Depot, Springfield Road, Hayes. So, Meg, can you take us through this one, please?
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for a replacement lattice tower. The existing tower is 22 metres high and the proposed would be 30 metres high. The position remains as the current one, but so it is a larger lattice tower that's proposed. It is set back quite a distance from the road, so you will see just the top of it. And we feel that in the position that it's in and the fact that it is a replacement of an existing tower that we can recommend approval. If I can just go to the presentation. So that's the position of it. You can see it is within the industrial area and set some distance back from Springfield Road. So, as I said, there are buildings and fencing and so on in front of it, so it will be visible the top half of it. And this is the existing siting and the proposed siting. So the siting of the tower doesn't change. The compound gets slightly larger. So that's the existing elevation. I don't know what's happened to the proposed elevation on the presentation. But it looks very similar. Members do have the plans in the plan pack, but it does look very similar to that. and it is sited, so members can see this is taken from the road frontage, and this is within the site, and these are taken from around it, so members will be able to see this will be higher, or the proposed will be higher than that by another 8 metres, so it will be more visible, but it will be behind the industrial buildings that are there at the moment. So we feel that its impact is limited, and given its siting in the industrial area, it is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
No, thank you for taking us through that, Meg. Okay, it's up for approval. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I'd just like to ask, it does say here that it's for the removal of the existing 22-metre tower and the erection of a replacement lattice tower, but we haven't put anything in our reasons. I mean, I'm happy with the approval, which talks about a time frame for the removal of the existing one, which presumably will have to stay in place until the new one is up. So do we need to put an additional condition for that, please?
Can you come back on that one, Meg?
Yeah, I think it may well be that that reason isn't there because they are removing this. The position of the lattice tower that's proposed is the position of the lattice tower that is there at the moment. So they would have to remove it. But if we want to sort of have a belt and braces, we can put a condition on saying that it would need to be removed, but they would need to remove it to put the new lattice tower because it's going in exactly the same position as the current one. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah, from the plans, that didn't look so. And how it looked as if it was alongside it, but maybe that's just me not understanding that properly. And also, what would they do about the existing provision? They can't just knock it down because that would remove the provision. So they've got to put something up, even if it is right next door to it, haven't they? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
As I said, I think that we can add a condition saying that if any equipment that's not required should be removed within 3 months of the new tower coming into operation.
Yes, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else indicating to contribute to the debate on this one?
Well, on that basis, I'm happy to move it then, Chair, with that additional condition. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Chairman. Happy to second it with the additional condition.
Okay, thank you. Right, I'm not seeing any other indications here, so I think we can go straight to the votes. So, Councillor Chapman, you seconded. So, Councillor Ahmed Walana?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Brightman?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Lavery?
For with the additional condition.
Thank you. Councillor Troubadour?
For approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, you moved. So, Councillor Dillon?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Birra?
For, Chairman, with the conditions.
Okay, thank you. So I make that unanimous 8 votes for approval with an additional condition around time frame of removing any redundant equipment. Can you confirm that, Liz?
Yes, that's confirmed, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. That's agenda item 18 approved. So we can now move on to agenda item 19. And we are talking about the land adjacent to the Cat and Fiddle, Rowan Road, West Drayton. Meg, can you take us through this one?
Thank you, Chairman. Again, another application for a monopole and associated equipment. This is an 18-metre pole sited on Rowan Road West, adjacent to the Cat and Fiddle, or opposite the Cat and Fiddle public house. The proposal again is sited in a fairly exposed position, and for that reason we are recommending it for refusal on visual grounds. It is sited in front of the St Martin's Primary School, St Martin's Church of England Primary School, and although I think members have looked at that, and we did explain why we're not putting a reason for refusal on that basis any longer. The site is also within 3 kilometres of an aerodrome, and they're required to, as part of their consultation, required to consult with the aerodrome. They've failed to do that, and that is also a reason for refusal, and therefore they failed to carry out the requirements under the General Permitted Development Order, and that forms a reason for refusal as well. So for 2 reasons, we are recommending refusal. If I can just go to the presentation. So that's the siting of it. It is fairly exposed. The only building around it is the Church of England primary school, St Martin's, and that is a fairly low building as such. It's 2 stories high, and sort of other than that, there are no buildings around it. So we feel that it does have a big visual impact on the surrounding area. These are the proposed site plan and the proposed elevation, and that's the siting of it. It is on that grass verge, and these are the surrounding buildings. Commercial units, 3-story flat roofed, and then you've got a flat roofed school building. That's set well back from that frontage, so it is having a major visual impact again. It is at junction of roads, and so it is visible from various angles as well. So for those reasons, we're recommending refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that, Meg. Okay, Liz, we had the ward councillor also submit some reasons for this one as well, didn't we?
Yes, we did, Chairman. So we received some comments from Councillor Jan Sweeting in relation to both item 19 and also to item 20. So I'm going to read those out together because they're in one submission. So she says, "Dear Chairman and members of the committee, as ward councillor for West Drayton Ward, I ask you to consider my comments regarding 2 applications which are coming to the above meeting. The applications being land adjacent to the Cat and Fiddle Public House and land rear of Armoured Avenue, Porters Way, West Drayton." So that's items 19 and 20 on our agenda tonight. As both of these planning applications relate to almost identical installations, I will be commenting on both in this one submission to the committee. The reason being that both applications are proposed within similarly built up areas, both in the middle of dense housing, and with just one added issue, that the first application is in respect to land adjacent to the Cat and Fiddle Public House, is very close to 2 primary schools, Laurel Lane Primary and St Martin's Church of England Primary School. I have received representations from residents living close to both these proposed installations, and all have been opposed to the installation of these huge 18-metre high masts. Residents have asked me to forward to the committee their concerns, and all asked the committee to refuse planning permission. If allowed, the masts would dominate the local areas and would be out of keeping with the almost universally low-height residential areas which would surround them. They would create visually ugly and domineering structures, and as the reports from officers state, would be obtrusive and would not harmonise with local surroundings. There is also a fear from residents that the health of the local population, especially the child population, would be negatively affected. Reports on this aspect may well prove that such masts do not affect people's health, but that is not what many people believe. I fully support the recommendations for refusal for both applications and ask that the members of the committee consider the views of local residents and confirm the recommendations provided by officers on both applications. I thank you for considering this submission. That's it. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, no, thank you, Liz, and thank you to Councillor Sweeting for your submission. So, right, Councillor Duncan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I haven't dealt with the residents' representations because I'm on this committee, but I know that my councillor colleague Jan Sweeting said that she had received, you know, quite a few objections to this. There's a lot of concern amongst residents living in residential areas when these are proposed right in the middle of those areas, and I'm sure West Drayton is no different from any other part of the borough. I think there's widespread concern about it, and it simply is the wrong siting. This is a very open corner, you can see from the photographs, so I'm very happy to propose the officer's recommendations that this be refused. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you, Councillor Duncan. Any other members wishing to indicate? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as Councillor Duncan said, it's a very open, very prominent location in a very domestic urban area. I'm more than happy to second the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chapman. I'm not seeing any other members indicate, so I think we can go to the vote. Councillor Chapman, you seconded, so Councillor Ahmed Bolana.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Brightman.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
For officer recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar.
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, you moved. So Councillor Dillon.
For refusal.
Thank you. And Councillor Birra.
I go with the officer's recommendation for refusal, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Birra. Liz, I make that unanimous, 8 votes for refusal of this application. Can you confirm?
Yes, Chairman, that's confirmed.
Okay, I can confirm that agenda item 19 is refused. Thank you, everybody. Okay, that brings us to the last item of part 1 for this evening, which is agenda item 20. Get myself organised here. Agenda item 20, which is the land rear of Ormond Avenue, Porters Way, West Drayton. So, Meg, can you talk us through this application, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sure members are glad we're coming to the end of our applications on masts. This is the final one. It is 18-metre high monopole, again with associated equipment, 3 cabinets plus the base to the monopole itself. The main reason why this application is recommended for refusal again is exposed siting. It is sited in a very open position, in sort of as an entry to the open space. It will serve as a sort of feature, if you like, to the entrance to the open space, and we're recommending refusal on visual amenity grounds. We do feel that it has limited impact on residential visual amenity. There are gardens that back onto it, but they are 18 metres away, and also they do have substantial amounts of landscaping between the mast and the residential properties. So there is limited impact on the residential visual amenity, but on street scene terms, we are recommending refusal. If I go to the presentation. So that's the siting of it. As I said before, that's the access into the open space. I suppose if you're lost, you may well find your way to the open space if that was there. So these are the location and existing plans and the proposed site plan and elevation. So that's the siting of it, and then these are the sort of residential properties that rear gardens back onto the siting. As I said, they do have landscaping which is around it, so it does have a limited impact on them. As you can see, there is substantial landscaping, but it is a very open position, and you get very long views of the mast and the equipment cabinets because of that, as these photographs indicate. So for that reason, we are recommending refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that, Meg. The previous application contained ward councillor comments which also pertain to this particular item, so we won't have those read out again. It did relate to both. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, again, I know that my councillor colleagues received a number of objections about this proposal. I mean, it gets better by the minute. You couldn't devise, you know, a more open area. One part of the ward where we've got open space, there's a children's playground, local shops, but surrounded by residential, and you put this huge, and they're very unsightly, I have to say, mast right by the entrance to the park. I mean, there simply needs to be discussion between the operators and our officers, so there's a better understanding from the operators that this is simply unacceptable. I'm very happy to move the officers' recommendation for refusal on this. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Ahmed Walana.
Mr. Chairman, this is in very prominent in open space, and of course it has a visual impact, and of course I'm going to second to refuse it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're moved, we're seconded. I'm not seeing any other indications to contribute, so we will go to the votes. Final vote for part one this evening. So Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, more than happy to go with officers' recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed Walana, you seconded. So Councillor Brightman.
Go with officers' recommendations for refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Support officer recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Tubadar.
For refusal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, you moved. So Councillor Dillon.
Or officers' recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Birra.
I go with officer's recommendation for refusal, Chairman.
Thank you. I can confirm that's 8 unanimous votes for refusal. Liz, can you confirm?
Yes, that's confirmed, Chairman.
Okay, so I can confirm agenda item 20 is refused. That brings us to the end of part one. So thank you to all those who've been watching us on YouTube this evening. Thank you for your time. But we're going to be closing the feed now, and I wish you all a good evening. Over to you, Liz.
Yep, councillors, if you can just remain on mute, it will take us a little while to shut down the YouTube stream. So just bear with me, and I'll let you know when we're not live anymore. Okay.